Tom and Katie, good to see you guys again.
You too.
Yeah.
So I understand you guys, you reached out to me, got into a little bit of an argument. We've talked a little bit about how we're navigating this. We moved towards your wedding day, but this is a big issue for you guys. So I want to talk about the issue that came up this week and just kind of see how we can navigate this to see where's the resolution. I think there's two goals here. Number one, let's see what the issue is about and what direction that's going to take us. Number two, how do we communicate about it? And just using this as a teaching moment to say, hey, this is how we can communicate better in the future. So I just want to hear from whichever one of you want to go first. Just tell me about the argument. Tell me about what happened, what the issue is. Let's jump in.
I think the main issue is that we don't know where we want to live after we get married. My entire family is in Louisiana, Mississippi, like the very deep South, and Michael's family is in upstate New York, and his parents, once they retire, where do they want to go? They want to move?
Central, East Coast, like Tennessee.
Right.
Okay.
So our families are in different areas, and family's really important to us, and we're just having a hard time figuring out where we're going to end up. And I know I have a preference of Louisiana or close to that, and Michael's not really a fan of that. So.
Okay. So tell me what happened. This argument you guys got into, and because this has been we have to talk about this in the sense of when you are married, and if there's kids in the future, where in-laws and holidays and all these types of conversations that you want to have, where you're going to live is a big one, and how you navigate that, and whose family you're around, or even if you're around family, and then you also have to think about the job situation too, right? And where that's going to take you. And so I think the big question is at this point, let's first talk about the argument. Let's first talk about where you guys are at with it and your level of comfortability with the issue, and then we'll go from there. So tell me about the argument. Tell me about what happened.
So I'm finishing up school this semester, and I'm looking to get my CPA, and I'm applying for jobs. And Katie's uncle, who lives in Louisiana, actually offered me a job to work for the firm that he works at. And we met in Louisiana because we both went to high school there, and when my dad was stationed there, and that's how we met. And I just wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I really can't see myself living there for the rest of my life or starting a family there. So, and where I came from, I moved around so much, and I'm not really close with any of my family outside my immediate family, so I'm okay with moving to other places, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Louisiana, I guess.
Yeah. And so the job opportunity came up, and she found out, and Katie, you found out he was applying to other places. It didn't make you very happy.
So when my uncle told him that he had to wait for Colin to get into his firm, I feel like when an opportunity comes, you should use it. You should take advantage of it. And, another job isn't guaranteed. It could take months. I'm already working right now. So, it would be a big help if he could just get a job right out of college. And then my family's also in Louisiana, so that's a big deal for me as well. I didn't move around a lot growing up. I stayed basically in the same house in New Orleans, Louisiana for a long time. So I'm missing home for sure, and I'd like to be back there.
Yeah. And so when you think about flexibility wise, right, and you have this opportunity, have you guys thought about, and even for you flexibility wise as it relates to this, have you thought about how flexible you are right after the wedding to be able to, or even now to think about what would it look like to transition down there, because the job opportunity's there, right? So as soon as you're done with school, you could go down there. Just the flexibility of, have you talked about any flexibility at all? Trying it for a year, maybe it's not a long-term thing, or that type of thing. Have you talked about that at all?
We actually didn't really get to that point. I think there was just a lot of emotion involved right off the gate, because we've had conversations about where we want to end up, and I never really considered Louisiana, and then now I feel like it's almost like getting pushed a little bit.
Okay.
And I see like that it is a good opportunity right out of school, but I just don't know if it's something that I would want to do.
Okay. So let me ask this question. Is this a do or die issue for you guys? Like, is this a hill that we will die on type of thing? I have to be in New Orleans or else. I have to not be in New Orleans or else.
I think for me, I'd like to be within driving distance, whether that's like a day's drive,
Okay.
a couple hours. I just want to be able to get to my family if I need to.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean Louisiana, you know? So I think I'm willing to bend there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a do or die for me. I think I never actually considered when you said maybe going there and trying it out for a year, and it's definitely a possibility. I just was thinking, I think farther down the line, starting a family down there, and I think that's where a lot of my initial reaction came from.
Yeah. Yeah. And reality is we have no idea, right? Like, what 2 years is going to bring or 5 years is going to bring. I think what the important thing is looking at this and saying, is this a do or die issue, or are we united? We're going to be together regardless, and we're fighting for each other. We're not necessarily fighting for where we want to live. And if you're fighting for where you want to live, that's a completely different dynamic. But it sounds like you guys are fighting for one another, right? So in that context, then it's looking at, and we're going to go back to what we learned about with the communication, right? Fighting for one another, not with one another, right? And what's going on within her heart matters more than what's going on between the two of you. And what's going on within his heart matters more than what's going on between the two of you. So in other words, then, whenever you got into this argument, right, and you saw that he was applying for jobs, and you knew that he had this opportunity, take me into that moment. Like, take me right into that moment when you saw that, and what did you say to him in that moment?
The opportunity might not be as good. I don't know. I think because my heart is so set on my family and being there, it kind of felt like a little bit of betrayal because he was, we just have different goals when it comes to that.
Yeah. And you were angry.
Yeah.
You were angry, and it came out. That anger came out. Mm-hmm. And as we talked about, that anger is a secondary emotion, right? So if you put a chair in the front, the anger is what's coming out. You put a chair in the back, and you put Katie in the back behind that anger chair. What's really going on underneath? And you said it. I felt betrayed, right? I felt rejected. I felt hurt. Now all of a sudden, Colin, you're fighting for a team, right? You're a team, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's the Katie I want to fight for. So when you hear that, now all of a sudden it's not about the place that you live. It's about, whoa, how do I protect her heart?
Yeah.
And then let's flip the script, right? You're angry in return because you're not ready to go down there, right? You're seeing other opportunities. And so your anger comes out, and what's going on behind there? You're not feeling hurt either. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. And I think looking at it now, a lot of that comes from maybe my own perspective of family, because she's way closer with her extended family than I ever was. So to me, it wasn't a big deal to be away from anybody. But she grew up with all of her cousins and all that. So maybe that's where it's coming from. It's just a sense of belonging, and maybe because I didn't experience that, I didn't understand it.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we could do moving forward, and I want you guys to talk about this. I want you guys to leave here and say, hey, number one, is this is this gonna, like, are we fighting for each other, or is this a hill we can die on? It doesn't sound like it is. It sounds like you're fighting for each other. And so you entering into her world, because this is going to come up over and over and over again in marriage. It's going to come up over and over. There's going to always be issues, and the issues rarely ever the issue. It's usually what's going on in her heart, and the same for him. It's usually what's going on within his heart. Those emotions that we talked about last time that you don't like to talk about, there's a deeper emotion happening within you, and you fighting for that for him. You know, like, hey, listen, I understand that you don't necessarily want to be around family, and I understand that, you know, job matters to you, and job placement and where we are and what that looks like, and him getting his own feet under him. And I've heard you say that before, rather than going in with her family, like you really establishing your own career. And so it's how do we come together and fight for one another? And I think it's important to be able to talk about some of those solutions. You know, it could very well be that 1 year saying, hey, you know, we'll give this a shot for 1 year. Could be that you do apply for some jobs here locally and see what comes up. And if there's a great opportunity, you know, we say, hey, you know, what does that look like? Or, you know, you look within, you know, there's a lot of great places to live within driving distance. I heard you say a day of New Orleans. You know, you could easily find anywhere from, you know, I think Nashville and Knoxville to Atlanta, all different. I mean, within a day's drive, a lot of great cities around there that you could get to. You know, so I think it's important, and I would love for you guys to be able to do that, is come back in our next session, and I want you guys to go have a conversation about it. I want you to talk through what might be ways that you can fight for one another, not with one another, as you navigate this, because this is an important issue now, and it's better that you deal with it now and decide than to get married and then not be having to deal with it and be like, oh, I wish. So I just want to honor you guys for dealing with this stuff right here, right now, rather than waiting till later and realizing, oh my goodness, you know, we didn't even realize this was an issue. So I'm just proud of you guys for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you guys go do that homework, and then we'll come back and we'll jump in again.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you guys. As you just saw in those mock interviews, those mock role play counseling sessions that we just had, you saw first the hindsight. So what we did with Colin and Katie is we went backwards. We went into family of origin to look at what have you seen, doing a genogram, maybe just discovering some relationship dynamics that you experienced growing up. And how are you bringing that into your marital relationship? It's going back and being aware of hindsight. And then in the second session, we went foresight. So what we did was we took a situation, an argument, a conflict, or a tension point in the relationship that could very well make or break the relationship in the future. And we brought it to light and we said, hey, look, is this a make or break issue for your relationship? Because we want to take a look at that. And I think it's very important that you're not pushing those issues, you're not sweeping those issues under the rug, but that you're genuinely talking about them. Because here's why. There's all kinds of opponents that you will come up against in your relationship together. And the reality is you have to work together as a team to overcome those opponents. In this case, in Colin and Katie's case, their opponent was moving to New Orleans, or her desire to move there. And this opponent, if not taken care of, if not addressed, can become, if we don't talk about them, they can become elephants in our marriage down the road. They can become these big issues that we tend to sweep under the rug, but eventually they will come to a head. And so we have to bring them to light, because the goal is fighting for one another, not with one another. And so if you're genuinely a team, you know that whatever opponent comes your way, and by the way, those opponents aren't negative. They're not always negative. As we've learned, having children and launching children out are two of the highest stress points of marriage. When you first have children and when you launch them out into the world, when they go to college, those are two high stress points. Listen, your children can become your opponents. What we're talking about is opponents to intimacy in your relationship. So they could be good things. It's just that we have to be able to communicate about them. And that's what you saw. Hindsight and foresight, the more we can talk about them, the more aware we become, and the less opportunity that it is for those opponents to really hinder our relationship. And so I hope that, I'm certain that along those two role plays, that there was maybe a tension point or an issue that you resonated with. And what I would love for you to do is you watch those role plays, that you look and you say, and you have the same conversations with your partner, that you guys talk about what are the things we're bringing in from the past and what are those tension points that we're moving into the future. Use those role plays as real opportunities for the two of you to connect as you move forward in your relationship.